welcome to this Eyes of Harmony podcast review of Castrovalva. We are back with reviews and not just a special Christmas one. We're doing it again. We've managed it. We've got back in the swing
Provided
of
we
it.
actually end up releasing this one.
We will, and hopefully.
Because just for the audience information, we recorded 2, which will never be seen. So
yeah.
I
bet you're gutted. I bet they're so gutted.
I know. A deep discussion of Planet of the Ood. I'm sure that was what you were most anticipating us talking about.
Best episode ever.
I know, right?
So we're back with Castrovalva. Usually we kind of did like a randomizer to choose it, or we kind of just said it. But I just really felt like watching Castrovalva, so I just said let's do that one. Because for context, I know I bought that box set. Must be about a decade ago now. What, I'm 23 now, 13 years old. That sounds about right for me buying it, because I was in like my height, kind of 13, 14, 15 was when I was really collecting them. So, and I know it was with like, I'm pretty sure it was like the Christmas-ish period as well. Like, you know, I got money, and I used to go to HMV, and it was really fun when I had like so little of a collection, because you know, it was such a big decision, wasn't it? Or what do I get? Like, you know, this is it, and then you buy it, you're like, do I regret this decision? But I kind of knew I wanted the Fourth Doctor's last stories. Fifth Doctor's first. I thought, you know, this is kind of a big moment in Doctor Who history, you know, regeneration stories. So I remember buying it. I remember looking at it in the car at the way home. The New Beginnings is such a kind of beautiful box art. I really love that. You know, it's got the Master. It's basically a Master trilogy.
It is. I was kind of similar in terms of the way I got it, although I think I might have maybe got it earlier. I got it about, it was year 6. It was after Christmas in year 6. I think my grandparents got me like a £50 Amazon voucher or something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
And I was trying to...
didn't you?
Sorry?
You bought The Beginning and New Beginnings at the same time,
I was trying to see what I could get, what was the most I could get for that amount. And so I got The Beginning. At this point, I only basically had like Tomb of the Cybermen. I think Genesis of the Daleks we had by this point. Leisure Hive and Remembrance of the Daleks as well, I think, by this point. And that was kind of it. And then like volumes 3 and 4 of Christopher Eccleston's, and I think series 2 volume 4. So not very much at that point. And I was just like, I really want to boost my collection with this. I don't know what my grandparents thought of when they got me that, but you know, I'm just gonna spend it on Doctor Who. So I got The Beginnings, I got New Beginnings, and I got the 25th anniversary. The second release of the Five Doctors basically is what I got throughout that. When they re-released, because of course the Five Doctors got released like 3 or 4 times, I think, over the course of the DVD's lifespan, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was the very first DVD, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the test. Yeah. They had like this really old version of the box. This was like late 90s, and they did like a special version with all these like new effects and fancy stuff and whatnot, and released that as kind of its own thing. And then later on they would include it into the main line and redo the covers and whatnot. But I had that second edition version. But this was amongst one of my very first like stories I got on DVD. Period. I remember I told my classmates about it at the time, like spending all this money on Doctor Who DVDs, and then everyone was just like, "What's wrong with you?" Because at this point, I think they probably expected it of me by this point, because I was like one of the very few people at this point who were going around like bringing in my Doctor Who Battles in Time cards into school. You know, I was that kid, so you know. But everyone kind of expected it.
That doesn't surprise me, Conrad. That really doesn't surprise me.
People were simultaneously shocked, but not shocked.
I kind of, it was odd. I kind of got to the point where I kind of kept my Doctor Who fandom kind of just quite personal. I don't know. I was never too like. I remember like you were specifically like. I know it was the 3DS and everything, but I wanted to talk about Doctor Who. But you were like the only person in the year who actually like new like classic Doctor Who as well. That was.
I was openly a Doctor Who fan. I wasn't closeted at that point.
I was closeted Who fan. Yeah, it took a while to come out to everyone that I was a Doctor Who fan. I was like, guys, I'm a Who. I'm a Whovian. And, you know, everyone's hats and yeah. Well, so yeah, I haven't watched this since. I remember at the time, the first time I watched it, I thought it was okay, but like nothing too memorable.
Yeah.
I think going back into this, obviously, this is kind of very much in some ways mirroring what we just kind of had. So while Tom Baker's era had different showrunners and everything, it was like 7 years, which is kind of a length that the Moffat era kind of lasted, you know. So it was this big kind of period, which was then moving on to a new writer. I know that the production, you know, changed at the end with John Nathan Turner being at the last season of Tom Baker, but this is where John Nathan Turner could really put into plan what he actually wanted for the series. You know, and he used the series before to set it all up, didn't he? You know, he added the extra companions. And...
Well, in terms of like tone, in terms of its music, in terms of its title screen, they'd already kind of made that transition. Because like Tom Baker's final series did feel dramatically different to everything that kind of came before, and it did continue pretty seamlessly into kind of what he was trying to do with the Peter Davison era, especially to begin with. It was quite a seamless transition, which I think that's what was the point which you were getting on to. Kind of almost wish that had happened after the Peter Capaldi
a bit
era.
more of a crossover, yeah.
Yeah.
Capaldi stayed for enough a series, so we got used to that kind of. And I guess then, like, there wouldn't be the issue of, you know, trying to work out things, but ignore the future. We're talking about Castrovalva.
Yeah.
And yes, the first story ever to the cold open. Which was a reshoot of the Regeneration. So it wasn't, they actually shot the Regeneration twice, which is why there's actually differences between the two. Obviously, like speed and stuff, like they kind of sped it up a bit.
Well,
like, you know.
yeah, that's true. You don't notice too much of a change though. Actually, when you're watching it,
it's only if you played it side by side. I think would you really see the difference.
Kind of weird that they did that in a way, but.
Well, it'd been in like a year, I think, almost about at least 9 months between the two, because I think like Tom Baker regenerated in the March, and this didn't come out till January. This aired January 4th to January 12th, which obviously the other big change, which kind of mirrors the Chibnall era, is that it moved air date to twice weekly. I think at this point it was Tuesday and Thursday.
Yes, I do believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I remember that because this was the point where, because it did change dates. I remember because my dad was an avid watcher at that point, and then once they changed the dates, because of his schedule, he could no longer actually watch it until it went back to the Saturday slot.
Colin Baker,
yeah. So he basically entirely missed the Peter Davison era just because of it.
Interesting. It's so like it's kind of strange how it mirrors, and like then also like the Free Companions, you know, and now they did the Free Companions. It's very interesting how I wonder if maybe the Peter Davison era is like Chibnall's favorite. Maybe it was. I wonder.
Possibly.
It'd be interesting actually if he ever does reveal what his like favorite period was.
I would say that actually, in some ways, this is the closest to what we're getting now, but at the same time, I think. Especially like in terms of companion dynamics, it's just far more interesting because all the companions here, they don't, you know, always see eye to eye or get along, or, you know, there's bickering, there's arguments, there's a bit of tension even between the Doctor and the companions, which makes the whole dynamic far more interesting compared to the kind of we're all fam you know, kind of mentality of most of the Whittaker era. Not that they didn't delve into like hints of it.
It got better as it went on. They had they did more confrontations later down the line. But yeah, series 11 was very much they just all got on. But yeah, so I thought that the first episode I thought the opening sequence was pretty cool. They were trying to escape, and then
I mean, it was interesting
because it showed that the companions aren't useless. You know, like Tegan, you know, pirates the ambulance and that whole. I love that whole sequence. I thought it was pretty. It was nice getting like the companions to actually kind of save the Doctor, even though it wasn't, you know, anything major danger.
Yeah, the only minor point which bugged me is when the Master shows up and does the electricity thing. If you're watching in the monitor, you can clearly see Adric just run towards the Master's TARDIS. Like, he's not taking anything, he just dashes towards it. It's just like...
just gets on his knees.
Why?
I gotta say, like, the best bit was when the Master's TARDIS just appears, which is a column.
Yeah.
Which, that should change. Like, the chameleon circuit should change it. But anyway, let's ignore that fact. Because the chameleon circuit clearly works, because it works in Castrovalva. But it's just, like, he arrives, and it just cuts to a clip of him laughing. Like, he doesn't say anything. It's just...
In case you forgot.
It's so camp, it's brilliant. Yeah. I absolutely love it. And yeah, that whole sequence with the Master is just hilarious. And like how like then he takes Adric into the TARDIS and the Master's TARDIS just appears just kind of above them, but then it's just this really faint laugh and it disappears. And
just watching down on them.
The whole thing is hilarious. Everything he says to Adric is so like homoerotic. Like, it sounds so like it's hilarious. It's like, you can't escape me now, Adric, you're mine.
Yeah. It's fun at first, like especially in like the first couple of episodes or so. Maybe that's having that kind of dynamic is fun, but it keeps happening throughout the entire basically 4 episodes. It's just you cut back to these scenes of the Master just standing there, usually with his arms folded, talking to Adric over and over again. It's just like, okay, we get it now.
Oh, we're betraying the. God damn it! You know.
Yes, Adric, we know you don't want to betray the Doctor.
I think like.
And yeah, I was gonna get to this one, but like, nothing happens until like 2.5 episodes in. Like the entire first 2 episodes, are, like, could have basically been condensed into 5 minutes if they wanted to. And
I think, well, okay, I will defend episode 1. I was captivated for episode 1. I felt that episode 1 had the decent kind of action-ish opening. You know, it wasn't. You know, I like that the Doctor didn't regenerate in the TARDIS. I think like. An issue of a common show is like sometimes it's like, okay, you're in, and I get like it, then you can take it anywhere to start a new adventure, but like maybe the Doctor doesn't always have time to get back to the TARDIS, you know, like it dies in such a way that, you know, it's nice to see like where it picks up straight away, and I feel like it added something fresh to the regeneration, like him being far away from the TARDIS. Maybe that was the reason why his regeneration, you know, was a bit wobbly as well as the other reasons.
No, they actually explained that it was to do with the radio waves and the effects that has on the brain during regeneration. Like the fact that he was right by a radio tower when it happened. It wasn't so much the fact that he was so far away from the TARDIS as rather actually being in the vicinity of radio waves that was affecting his brain as regeneration was happening, and therefore certain things in the kind of. A lot of sciencey babble, but basically his brain got fucked up by the radio waves, and he needed to take time to recover.
I really enjoy like his performance in the first episode. I think sometimes like especially in the classic era, the first episode being a bit slow is kind of nice, because really you want those first 25 minutes the Doctor to be, you know, like, you know, find themselves out and all that. And that's why I was kind of fine with episode 1 being like. Kind of different to the rest, but episode 2 is just, man, that wasn't a drag.
It wasn't so much of an issue of what happened to the Doctor's TARDIS, but it's rather I'd rather have more interesting things been happening in the Master's TARDIS, I guess. Because like if you'd had a contrast of more interesting things happening somewhere else, but then the Doctor's like meandering about and, you know, pretending to be the first Doctor and such, you know, that would have been fun on its own if it then been contrasted with like look at kind of how I guess Christmas Invasion actually is another like first story does it, is that you kind of have like actiony bits happening elsewhere but not necessarily where the Doctor is always. The Doctor, when you have the Doctor there, it's usually slow and it's just like Rose trying to, you know, look after him or whatever, but then you have like, you know, more intense bits with you know, Harriet Jones and, you know, the incoming Sycorax invasion and stuff like that. You know, that's kind of how I feel like it's generally the best balance, is when you have like kind of a slow bit, but you also like have like small elements of action that makes it seem like the plot's progressing faster. The danger which they have is, well, once Adric reprograms the TARDIS, they're heading straight towards the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang. But that happens so slowly, and they have so much time to kind of fluster about and, kind of panic about it, that it doesn't really, you don't really get a proper sense of that kind of panic and danger and, oh my goodness, we're being sent straight into the biggest bang in history, until basically the timer counts out. But it takes so long to get to that point. There's so much just like nothing between that. It's just like,
yeah.
Again, this probably all could have basically been condensed down to an episode if they wanted to. Like, maybe 5 minutes was a bit, yeah. But, like, you could have done this in, like, an episode or an episode and a half or something, but...
I think they could have just ended up straight at Castrovalva, I think that's where they could have just ended up on that straight away. I don't think they needed the whole Big Bang thing.
No, well, I don't mind that inherently as kind of, like, as kind of like a first opening danger. It's just, and we'll get to a bit more of the Master's plan later, how that ties into everything else that's going on is where the problem for me kind of lies, and the Master's kind of baffling decisions throughout this.
Well, I think there may be a large issue to why this was like was basically that originally this wasn't supposed to be the Fifth Doctor's first story. Originally, it was supposed to be another story, but basically, I think it was thrown out the window, and it wasn't. It was like a different script. It was supposed to be used entirely, and they John Nathan Turner cancelled it.
So this was kind of a last minute kind of replacement.
Yeah, so it was. Because he already, his first story that they filmed was Fought to Doomsday, and they filmed this one later on. And I think this was slightly rushed.
You get that sense. Like I said, some of the plot is kind of paper thin, and there's large periods of very little happening. And also, again, especially the first 2 episodes take place pretty much entirely inside the TARDIS. And then, like, the Master in a black room, almost like we hadn't finished building the sets yet, so let's film just what we got. Because they had, more of the TARDIS interior built throughout the end of the last series. We saw, like, a bit of it in, like, Keeper of Track and Logopoplois. They got to explore a bit more. Which is a nice thing I kind of appreciate about this this a little bit, is that we do just in general, like, this whole kind of, I guess, trilogy, you get to see more of the inside of the TARDIS, which beforehand was barely touched upon. I mean, like, we saw a second control room midway through the Tom Baker era.
They had other rooms,
Yeah, and then there was also Invasion of Time, where they had the TARDIS as a generic Blick room and a swimming pool that looks like any other swimming pool, not like a TARDIS swimming pool. We'll talk about the episode another time, but pretty rough.
Yeah, I kind of liked how the Doctor was kind of destroys a scarf, and I mean, not my favorite scarf, so I kind of like it ripping it apart. Yeah, get it. I find the cricket thing so random, though.
Yeah.
It kind of comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? It's like he kind of finds the bat and is like, "Oh, it needs a lick of oil," and there's just a cricket room.
Why does the Doctor have a cricket room to begin with? I don't. Why? When was the other time he felt like? Was William Hartnell's Doctor like particularly fond of cricket?
Maybe it's a pre-Hartnell Doctor, you see.
Ah, I see. It was a leftover.
Cricket legend, so this is actually like the second time it's worn it.
Yeah, I see.
But
yeah,
I like his performance. I find the first episode is captivating, and then the second episode,
although
really
it's still maybe a bit on the slow side, but it was a good chance to kind of explore kind of this failing regeneration side of the Doctor and see what the companions do without him. Well, specifically Nyssa and Tegan, because of course Adric is, well, not really Adric, is a projection of Adric that's messing with the TARDIS and reprogramming it, despite the fact he only touched like 3 buttons. Like, somehow was able to reprogram the entire thing. So that was fun. And I think he frozen. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Well, I was still talking
into
throughout
it.
that, so it's fine. We don't need to cut anything.
Right, I didn't get my audio this end.
No, but I was finishing my point, so it's fine.
Okay.
That's all
Is
that
what
matters.
it's not going to be on this audio, so it's going to be out of sync.
Well,
So just,
I mean, if I
I guess you can use your audio bit,
maybe,
and then we just cut this bit.
yeah, yeah.
Add to it.
But yeah, no,
So we-
like Adric literally touched 3 buttons and then had it, which meant it A, programmed the TARDIS's flight controls, and 2, completely reprogrammed the TARDIS in order to implement fake planets into its data system for some reason.
also that, but also managed to put fake coordinates, instructions for Tegan to then think she was flying the TARDIS.
Yeah,
He did a lot in 3 button pushers.
I know, right? I
I
know.
just like to think he had a little thing which he plugged in, but we didn't see it.
Also, I don't quite. This is a very, very nitpicky thing, but like Nissa's wandering around the TARDIS trying to figure out how everything does. How does she miss the data console? and Tegan's just like, "Hey, there it is."
Literally on the big fucking screen. Maybe she should have questioned it. Maybe they should have written.
Although one bit in that, which like one small little bit of humor which I appreciated, that is kind of Tegan's logic to get to the IF index file bit. It's just how she acts that, and then Nissa's reaction to that was actually I got a laugh at that.
I really enjoyed the companions in this. I know Adric's usually a bit kind of wet and everything, but I still thought he's at least trying, like in the opening scene and everything. I kind of, he's the one who's written out, and I know that writers have admitted, for this era, which is maybe something Chibnall probably should have taken into account, that they usually have to incapacitate the companion for a story so they can concentrate on the other 2, which is fine, but you kind of have to make sure that you do that evenly. But yeah, obviously that they kind of learned that towards the end of the season. They're like, fuck, kill Adric.
Yeah. So yeah, Adric isn't really much of a thing in this story. Although he's essential to the plot, he doesn't really make much of an impact. So we get a bit more time to focus on Tegan and Nissa, which is nice considering. Well, they've only just introduced the pair of them.
Yeah,
anyways.
I mean, Tegan's even more new. Nissa, slightly,
Well, only had 1 episode
only
more.
1 episode more, yeah. But this is the thing when you have 4-parters, that's an hour and a half with this companion, and that's also the difference to now modern day. Like they're only 50 minutes; they're not an hour and a half per story,
Yeah.
So even that, I think, if you had, if it was still, say, Doctor Who was still the same format, 25 minutes and 4 parts, and it played for most of the year, like 6 months of the year, then you could get away with having, these kind of slow moving, a bit like WandaVision, which just came out. That kind of where you have more time to be with these characters. And you don't have to rush the plot like you have to in a 50-minute complete package.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to say, while episode 2 was slow with the whole forest and carrying the Zero.
Well, no,
I did enjoy the sequence with the wheelchair. I thought that was very funny. I thought that was it was good, like comedic timing.
Well, actually, we only get to we only pretty much get to it like the forest like halfway through episode 2 as well. So it's like because they have the whole like jettisoning bits of the TARDIS to escape, which is. It's I don't quite understand why they needed to do that. I guess he was trying to explain it's kind of like
burns fuel, I guess, and they can use that jettison energy as thrust.
Yeah. That was one bit of this whole escape which kind of had a bit of like actual dramatic tension. Is kind of them going, "Oh no, we might jettison the console room. What if happens if we do that?" Which was a nice thing to consider, but.
It's a lot like in the Impossible Planet in the Satan's Pit when they're on that base and they have to like put the shockwaves and then they lose the TARDIS because it was in area 18. He's kind of like that, and I feel it was cool, and I like that the Zero Room got jettisoned. Though building the box out of the doors, I thought it was only 2 doors, so I don't know how they managed to.
Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of... Like, how is, like, the effects of the Zero Room even still effective when the Zero Room isn't there. Like it's literally, just a couple, just a tiny cupboard now. Like, how does it still have the same powers? Like, is it just the walls which are the Zero Room, or?
I guess they block them out. It's what the walls are made of. I guess it's good soundproofing, man. It's like you got to have a good soundproofing in the TARDIS these days. It's noisy, the universe. You just get, you could have just gone to modern day Earth and found a good sound room, good padding and stuff.
I guess.
But carry on.
Oh, I was like, so then the rest of the episode is just Nyssa and Tegan pushing the Doctor around on and carrying the Doctor to
losing the wheelchair.
Yeah.
If Susan had gone down that hill to fetch that wheelchair, she would have twisted her ankle.
Yeah, she absolutely would have. Thankfully, it's Nyssa.
When I was watching, I was like, "Oh my god, is she gonna twist her ankle?" Because obviously I didn't remember any of this. I was like, "Please don't twist her ankle." And then she fell. I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna do the trope." And then no, she just kind of pulled a funny face, which was actually pretty good. And then
this whole bit with like Nyssa and Tegan, like now that Russell T with the Sarah Jane Adventures big established them as later on being a couple, I can't help but just read into every bit of their kind of interactions throughout this.
Yeah, I find that weird because they leave in very different ways.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably going to be up to other media to establish, but I mean, you can kind of see how. If you watch this episode in particular, actually, and all the kind of the amount of time they spend together, you can kind of see how that,
that would form that kind of relationship. Yeah. I mean, they do work together a lot, and they're a good team. I mean, so Castrovalva, actually getting to Castrovalva at this point in the story, 2 episodes in.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a lot. It's dialogue heavy. This story, it really is, and. It's tough to kind of, if you're not focused, you'll definitely drift off on it.
I mean, there's barely any action or anything to kind of balance it. It's mostly just a very, very slow kind of build throughout. Talking about how the society function, their history, their culture, their beliefs, how this, how the actual city itself works. I mean, there's some things they don't even explain. Why are they wandering about outside in these, Well, I understand for the exercise, in terms of them wandering about, but why are they dressed like some bizarre carnival goldfish bowl things? I never got those outfits. It doesn't even make sense for their culture. Nothing else in this story kind of... they're not, a culture of, bright colours and eccentric costumes and such.
The fact that the master just made it on a whim, I think you can get away with the fact that.
But then why didn't he model the entire city to be like? Why didn't he make Adric make that whole city kind of to fit that culture rather than just have it? Oh, you go hunting, but you're going to be in this colourful, bright,
Easy to see
with goldfish bowl helmets. It's the silliest living thing. It doesn't even make any sense in the context of the rest of the story and the revelations we find out about it. That is literally why would you do that?
I thought Anthony Ainley as the old man, I embarrassingly didn't see it was him.
As a kid, I didn't either, to be fair.
I didn't remember that twist, so when I watched it, I was like, he doesn't seem that old, but I was thinking maybe back in TV days when things weren't as as they are now. I was thinking they just got some young guy to do an old voice because he could, and they just got him in because he was free.
Yeah.
And then when the twist happened, I was like, oh god, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. No, quite the opposite. I could, in certain shots, it's actually pretty obvious, that it is Anthony Ainsley. They did a fair amount of makeup to try and cover that up, but in certain shots, it is pretty obvious it's him. I think they were going for this whole thing to where they wanted you to think that the librarian might have been the master or something.
Yeah. But at some point I did. I think he was using kind of a better disguise rather than literally just a beard.
Yeah,
wig.
But no,
they
I
just
mean,
used
yeah, true. But I mean, maybe it's because I did remember it, but it was actually just looking at the appearance of what's his name even, like the Paris, I think it was.
Portreeve.
Yeah, I can't spell. A Portreeve. The Portreeve. I mean, yeah, like I said, just in certain, like there was this one shot in particular that I noted when he and the Doctor are kind of standing next to each other, and it's just like he turns his head, and you can see it kind of clearly.
I'm looking at the Doctor Who wiki now, and they've got that exact picture, and I can see it, and it's so clear it's him right here now.
Yeah,
but I just didn't see it in the wide shots. It wasn't, clear enough to me.
True. And I mean, I guess it might be less obvious in like old CRTs.
Yeah, old TVs and stuff. I feel like you wouldn't have seen it that much. I love the bit which made me laugh was when like he's so desperate to get into the zero box. He's got like a crowbar.
Yeah.
I want to look into your eyes, I destroy you, and he can't open it with a crowbar. But he literally then picks it up and it collapses.
Well, and then like Nissa points this out to him, and he's just like, "Oh
God! Like, get away from me!" Yeah.
The Master's
getting out of here.
The Master's entire plan in this story is so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, so he reprograms the TARDIS so that the Doctor can come here, so he can be as like his backup plan if the Doctor doesn't die in the Big Bang, so that he can be entrapped in this like city. So that he can then kill him at some point, despite the fact that you could have literally killed him anywhere. Why did you need to build a city track, considering he's already incapacitated? And 2, if he's got full control of the TARDIS, why didn't he just program it to go directly, like, as like his plan B? Why didn't he just like have it called Castrovalva, but then set the coordinates to something like a star or something, and just crash the TARDIS straight into something else? Like why did it need to be on this peaceful forest planet with like creations of Adrix with their own sentient free will? Like, how does that make any sense?
I mean, look, he doesn't recycle plans, Conrad. I mean, you got to think about it. He clearly doesn't do it because he has so many stories in the Pertwee.
Right.
He doesn't recycle anything. He just does it the same. This reminds me a lot of like the Despicable Me meme where it's got like the plan.
Right.
We grab the TARDIS to go to the Big Bang. We make a backup plan to build a planet. It's like get trapped there. Oh.
But even in this episode, right, he had numerous occasions to just pull out his, like, matter zapper and just shoot him in the back. And yet he waits till the Doctor's being carried around in the impenetrable box and then tries to force it open despite the fact he knows that it can only be opened from the inside. And then once the Doctor is revealed not to be there, he doesn't then immediately shoot him. He watches as this other guy jumps into the web and destroys it, and then runs away, as opposed to just shooting the Doctor at any point. Like, what was the point of any of this? And what's this logic going on here?
I think Master's very erratic after his taking over the body. I think he's going through some things. He's going through the chain.
But they had an entire episode to get over that.
Hey, that's not. I think how long Time Lords live. Like, this is like he needs at least 5 years.
At least his plan of Gopherploys made sense to a certain extent.
Yeah, somewhat.
Just more than this, at least.
Because I mean, like, let's look at it this way. A whole discussion is: does the Master actually want to kill the Doctor? I think this is very much like it's the same kind of relationship between like Batman and the Joker. Like in the
he
Dark
blatantly
Knight.
killed him in the last episode.
Yeah, but it kills him so he regenerates. Like, this is the thing. He doesn't like. I don't think that the Master ever really wants to outright kill the Doctor. I think if a Master did that, how boring would his life be? Like, kind of like the Joker. Like, the Joker doesn't want to kill the Batman because as soon as he kills the Batman, what else is he gonna do?
Well, unlike
it's the same. In my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I could have interrupted you there. I would point out that while the Joker's kind of confined to Gotham, as I think Missy points out in like one of her stories, like her whole life doesn't revolve around the Doctor. Like, she has like planets to conquer and blow up and civilizations to screw over and such without having the Doctor there. And this is explored a bit more in kind of some of the Big Finish stuff. In particular, from my experience, the War Master series is mostly until like they have like a crossover episode, like several volumes in. They don't involve the Doctor at all. It's just the Master going about the universe, screwing up people's lives and making it them miserable, while backstabbing both the Daleks and the Time Lords along the way in order to gain his goals. Like, I don't... Yeah, to a certain extent I see that, but... And it also depends on the incarnation, I think, as well, to a certain degree. Like, Sacha Dhawan's Master wants to kill the Doctor, I feel like. In terms of his intent to look at that.
He more wants to torture the Doctor.
Yeah.
Rather than, I think really the Master only ever wants to hurt the Doctor rather than outright kill. I think there's always, I feel like while they will try to kill them, I think deep down there's this weird psychological thing that they kind of also want them alive. I feel like there's been times where he could have easily. I mean, look at World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. They just tie him to a chair. They could have easily outright killed him there.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of gloating and ha ha ha.
I think it's about the gloating and look, I got you, ha ha ha. Now I'm going to try and kill you. Now you'll escape. I'll act annoyed, but deep down, this is actually what I love the most. I love this challenge because while the Master can go around, as you said in like Big Finish, and conquer universes, because the Master always has kind of been successful until the Doctor comes to stop the Master. So she has this success for a while. She always and he always gets lots of wins as well. It's only when the Doctor shows up and changes it, but then that gives like the Master a fresh new plan and new ideas to go off and do these things. I feel like there's this it's the same similar kind of relationship of the Master doesn't ever really truly want the Doctor to be completely gone.
Sure. I
feel like it's this, and that's why that he makes these weird elaborate plans because it's fun for him. It's stupid. It's from our point of view, it's completely stupid, but I think from his psychological processing, this is just his way of like playing. It's like a playground, really, the universe to the Doctor and the Master. And while the Doctor wants to build a sandcastle, the Master is very happy to go around stomping on them and destroying. Because to either of them, it's just like a toy. It's like, but the Doctor appreciates. It's like, wow, look at this place. This is so beautiful and amazing. The Master's like, fuck it, doesn't matter. Throws it against a wall, watches it, break, and is like, wow, that was fun. And it goes off to the next thing. But at least that's how and that's why the Master is such a great villain, I feel, compared to like the Daleks and the Cybermen, who will try and outright kill the Doctor because they generally hate him, but they have no emotions pretty much apart from like the bad one. Well, the Master does have emotions of joy, and the Cybermen and Daleks don't laugh. Master does. His laugh is a big part of his campiness personality. He has those emotions, which is why in some ways he is the best villain in Doctor Who sometimes. I think there's an argument case for that.
This is definitely true, and I mean, certainly, but like if you look at other Master stories, I think they kind of play this point better, particularly if you look back at a lot of the John Pertwee era ones. Usually there's a degree of logic, even if it is still a bit of that. Like here, there's so many holes in his plan, and like despite the fact that he blatantly the Master considers every possibility in his backup plan. He expected the Doctor. I mean, I'd point that out in this. He expected the Doctor. He actually, to a certain extent, was,
pretty smart that he expects it. He expects him to escape from this trap.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, this is true.
He's the UK government at the minute. He's got backup plans. He's thinking it through.
Yeah, but again, there could have been.
Oh wait.
There could have been far more logical, things to put the Doctor through, ordeals to put him through. Rather than having a pleasant civilization that again all have their own free will and could potentially hinder the plan which he's currently got. Like I don't.
Well, he doesn't expect them to have free will. That's the thing. Because remember, he says to them, "It's like, oh, someone's been messing with your, I can't remember what he calls it, but he does it as he's trying to break into the box, and they're like, you're not the, whatever it was again.
Yeah.
The Portreeve, that's it. The Portreeve, and he's like, oh, someone's been messing. Like he still sees them as ants. They're his own creation, And that's the master's naivety. He looks at a toy and he breaks it, but he doesn't realize that maybe this thing that I exploded now could hurt me. It could ricochet and hurt me. Like this is the thing. He doesn't think these things through. He sees himself above all these things, while the Doctor doesn't.
Yeah.
Still, I think there are other master plans that have kind of done this balance a lot better. I think this is, in terms of the master's plans, probably one of his.
Weirder ones. I mean, Anthony Ainley has weird plans. His whole era is just odd plans. This master.
True.
But they're all strange from what I remember.
Yeah. Although this one I think is particularly flawed.
Probably rank them at some point. The Anthony Ainley master plans.
Yeah.
And rank best to worst. The ones which make the most sense for the least. I think that'd be quite a good video, actually.
Yeah.
Comment below if you feel that'd be a good video, guys. That'd be, yeah.
Another thing I'm a little bit disappointed in this story is that most of the cliffhangers aren't very good, except for the third one. The third one's pretty good, with the whole effect of Castrovalva folding in on itself.
Yeah.
Some of the effects may be a little bit wonky, but we can look past it to a certain extent.
Yeah, all the time I thought it was really, really good. It was definitely, we can manage all these effects, and John Nathan Turner was like, fucking do it. Get them all.
Just get them all.
No consistency with these effects. Fucking do it. Have them running upside down. It's fucking crazy. Oh my god, that's some ludicrous shit right there. Love it. Let's do some digital stuff. Blur them.
And there were certain points I don't remember if this was episode 3 or 4, but that kind of went a bit nowhere. At one point the Zero Room suddenly disappears, and then they wander about for ages trying to find it until they just do, and they just put it back with as if nothing happened. And then for some reason the mirror's also affecting the Doctor. I guess he kind of explained it as
they hid the Zero Room box because they knew that if the Doctor was inside it, he'd be safe. So then they're doing their washing or whatever in it. I don't know what to do. So they hid it. So it's kind of it's padding plot.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. That's the bigger issue. That's why I say it kind of goes nowhere. It's just because this plot point. Oh, it's gone. Wander about. Oh, now it's back.
Oh, well, I'm back where I was.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, most important plot points. Like I said, I think if you took away a lot of the padding, you'd almost get a 2 to 3 part story here, because the most important point are the Doctor's initial kind of troubles with regeneration, them getting to Castrovalva, and then figuring out that the history is faked and all the people, and slowly that realization of the fact that nothing here is real, it's all manufactured, and that's an interesting part of the episode. And I mean,
they didn't need to spend the whole process of getting to Castrovalva. I think that it definitely could have been three parts. They land straight at Castrovalva.
And then even in Castrovalva, there were certain bits within it which are just what was the point in this? So many little extra scenes. It felt like there were certain moments and bits were just there for the sake of padding. A guy will go out the door and suddenly there's a crowd outside waiting for the Doctor. Okay, why? Why were they just standing there? I don't remember them all being going. They were just the washerwomen washing the clothes, and now they're suddenly waiting outside for the Doctor. Okay.
What happens, man? They go round and round in circles. It's
Another issue I have with this, actually, just in terms of the padding, is that the recaps at the beginning of every episode in this are incredibly long. Yeah. They take up 2 to 3 minutes at the beginning of every story. It's just did we really not?
You can tell this. I think this story was written under quick.
Yeah.
stress, got to get it done, got to get it done. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've kind of got to say on the story. I feel like, Peter Davison's fantastic. I think like he really gets. Filming it later, I think definitely helped him get an idea exactly of who he needed to be as the Doctor in this episode. I think like it'll be interesting watching Forward to Doomsday if he's as strong as that in that episode. I know you watched that recently. What would you say?
It's not great.
It's more wobbly. Okay, well,
yeah,
it's good that
it's in a different way to this, although some of the same kind of problems I think persist. But I'm not huge on that. Certainly, there are better episodes in Peter Davison's first series.
Oh, for sure. The later on ones, basically.
Yeah. And also, actually, just as a minor point towards the ending of this, like the fact that basically everybody in Castrovalva died, and there's not like a point made of that. Like they just kind of wander off and grin and smile as if they've done a good job. But
gotta jog to the top.
Everybody we've known for the last several days are dead.
Yeah. But did they ever exist in the first?
No, because they were all kind of creations of Adric's mind, pretty much.
Yeah, so they live on in Adric's mind.
Do they though? Because it's never brought up again.
Well, he dies, so then they die. Then
they die later. But that's what, yeah. Then they die again.
They die again. There we go.
And the whole distortion effects, like as Castrovalva's like properly getting destroyed, I praised like some of the one for the cliffhanger. The one as Castrovalva's being destroyed, like the weird like mashed pixel effect that's just rough. That's just not even it's not even charmingly bad. That's just bad.
I don't know.
Also, I wonder.
You got to think for the time they would have had to cut the film. I'm pretty sure to make that effect. So for the time, it's pretty decent.
I guess. They
would have had to lay it over the top and then cut parts out of one so it laid on top of the other. I'm pretty sure that's how they would have managed it.
I don't know. What was this like?
It's still filmed.
Probably, yeah.
Recording on film.
Probably too early to even get some of the most basic like computer effects that they'd have like later in the 80s. So yeah,
it's
all
all,
right.
it's
They would get there throughout the John Nathan Turner era, but it's not quite yet.
Yeah.
It had very basic ones in maybe the Five Doctors, I think. With like the monitor screen having like some of the wireframe, I think, if I remember right. Very, very early stuff though.
Yeah.
I wonder what would have happened if like that one guy actually did escape. Would he have just dissolved anyway, or because the door shuts on them regardless? But like, what would have happened if he actually got out of Castrovalva?
A very lonely life on an empty planet.
Surely the Doctor would have taken him somewhere else.
I guess so. Let's have 5 people in the title. Let's just keep going. Let's just ramp the numbers
keep
up.
building this up.
No one ever leaves. Yeah. Or they just, Well, I think that's it. That's my thoughts on it. That's what would you rate it then?
So, I mean, I was kind of worried I wouldn't say worried, but this was an episode which all the stories I got in that initial bundle, which I mentioned before, were stories I was fond of because of my childhood watching of it, and I watched this whole trilogy in a trilogy like back to back, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is all so cool, and so I haven't actually watched it back in a very long time, and some of these episodes which I watched as a kid a lot, I'm kind of almost worried too. Just what would I think of it now? What if my memories are worse off? And I think to a certain extent this has kind of fallen victim to that. Like,
yeah.
So little happens. Like it's the first 2 episodes are like 70% filler, and granted, in episode 1 it kind of works because
it's a new Doctor.
Establishing a new Doctor, a little bit of extra filler kind of works, but at the same time, they do kind of have this looming threat, which is them heading towards the beginning of the universe and potentially being affected by the Big Bang, which never feels like a true problem until the little
Doctor Who, because Edge of Destruction was beginning of the universe, wasn't it, as well?
Yes. It's been a while since I've seen that episode.
Yeah, it's at the beginning. I swear they're at the beginning of Universe. And that's why there's not something like that.
I need to watch that back. But yeah, I mean, like, they have a threat, but they don't treat it very much like a threat until, like, literally they're in the last, like, minute of that threat. So, and, you know, the master just sits back in this black room throughout the entire episode, just cackling maniacally and taunting Adric. It's just like I felt like falling asleep. Like, I watched this again, like, relatively late last night. And I just felt like this was like, well, when I say relatively late, this was like I started watching it at like 9, and I already felt like falling asleep by like midway through the first episode. It was just, or like close to, actually maybe close to like the second episode, but it was just like nothing's happening. Come on, do something. Get something happen.
With a stick. It's like that, you know, the meme where it's like poking the thing with a stick. Do something, Castrovalva. Do it.
And then we get to Castrovalva, and it, like, more stuff happens, and there are some interesting ideas here, like an entire city made to be a trap for the Doctor with a forged history and people's designed to give the Doctor a false sense of security is an interesting idea in itself. And had it been for a better story, maybe this would have been something that I would have been praising to high heaven. But as it stands, it was done in a pretty dull way. Not that it's all bad by any means. You know, the acting's solid across the board, and like I said, there are some interesting ideas, and the actual set of Castrovalva was nice enough. Music was very repetitive, especially along the walk. It's just the same song throughout basically the entire... I mean, that's part of the issue with episode 2, is that it basically has the same song on loop throughout most of it. Just kind of like flute song.
Oh yeah. Also,
just like throughout the entire...
I mean, this adventure randomly along the way, it's just stripping everyone of their clothes. The Doctor's ripping his clothes off everywhere. This was losing her clothes in bushes. I mean, it's a
very horny episode, let me tell you.
I can't believe it's a rated Q. I mean, you know, getting Evil Dead, trees removing clothes and everything.
The way Nissa leans over Tegan as she slides asleep in her bedclothes, man. Anyway.
You gotta give it a number now?
Okay. I was trying to summarise, but it was, it kind of became a very long summary.
You've got like 1,000 word count.
Yeah, okay. I get it. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, probably... 5, 4 maybe? Somewhere in that range. Like, I think it's about average. Yeah, I'll go 5. Like, it's perfectly down the middle. Like, it has certainly strong points, like its acting, its sets, and some of the plot points. But it's just actually, no, 4. There's so much fluff and nothing going on throughout it. Like, it's not a particularly bad story by any means, but it's like... If I get, like, Peter Davison, there's so many better episodes in this. It's just kind of... It feels... And again, this kind of hurts. I think it's similar to kind of Runaway Bride when I was talking about that. Like, I loved that story as a kid. Like, this was, like, the coolest, you know... Like, oh my god, it's a cool taxi chase, and oh my goodness, you know, so many cool things, and yet when I watched it again, it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of things in this episode that really suck, and I can't justifiably give it a particularly good score. And that's how I'm feeling here. Like, I loved it at the time just because of how the emotion of having those 3 episodes back to back, and how cool that was as kind of a trilogy. But really, it is those first 2 episodes which were the cool bits, and then you get to this, and it's just like, this is like the lame epilogue, but nobody cares because the rest of it was so cool. But when you take it out and single it out, like, it's...
Yeah. If this wasn't a new Doctor story, it would be a real big dud.
Yeah.
Like, you get a lower score. I think the acting's good, like, across the board. The concepts are good, but there's too much padding.
Yes.
Definitely could have been told in 3 episodes for sure. I'm not, you know, annoyed with the writer. It sounds like he had to do it under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So I get it. I kind of get it. But yeah, I feel like 4 is about just for this story. I was 5, but I think just this is just too much padding.
Yeah.
I think it's funny though that basically Castrovalva did the same thing as the Villa of, Diodaddy or something.
Kind of does.
Your Villa, where they're just walking across camera and coming back. It's like literally the same level of effects. Like they literally managed the same thing in the 80s.
So, somebody just needs to create an edit where it's like Castrovalva's music over.
Yeah. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, I think 4 for the Fifth Doctor's first story, and it would be lower if it wasn't like I think when you watched it as a kid, and probably when I first watched it, it's the awe of, oh my god, this is like the Fifth Doctor's first story. This is really epic. This is the beginning of this new chapter, and all that. But that's as good as it kind of gets, really. And yeah, 4 to Doomsday from memory is all right, but but Kinder's from memory.
Kinder's, I love Kinder. Yeah. Like I look forward to talking about that someday because Kinder is great.
And
I don't think we're picking. Like I feel always bad giving because like it gave so many low scores to be like other than the Visitation. Like I think pretty much every Peter Davison
just not done his strongest stories. It's okay. I do really like Peter Davison as the Doctor.
Yeah,
and he's great in this story. And I didn't really, when I was younger, Peter Davison was probably the one I just didn't connect with the most. I think the ones I connected with the most was John Pertwee, Colin Baker. Those two were the top ones for me. Then William Hartnell, then Patrick Troughton and Sylvester McCoy, kind of those 3. Tom Baker, I just never even now, I enjoy him a lot, but just like for my childhood nostalgia, I guess I just never really, I don't know. But Peter Davison came off worse, and like I guess I just saw when I did watch his stories, it was just they were just never the best ones first. I think I watched a lot of his duds first, and that was the issue. It just kind of like made me kind of think this era is kind of duddy, but it's not. Plenty of great.
I watched the 5 Doctors before any other story in his era, and in that story, he's kind of almost the blandest Doctor they have there. So it's just like I think that gives you a very bad first impression because I know I bought the 5 Doctors then, but I actually saw it before at someone who was a friend of mine at the time. He had like the original version of the 5 Doctors, so I actually watched it beforehand. But he always kind of felt like to me like, you have so many of these cool other personalities here. Like even the small snippet of Tom Baker you see, you have all these like cool Doctors, and they just have the latest one, which is just like the latest one.
Yeah, that's his thing. That's his thing, isn't it? There's a Daddy the Clown, the latest one.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a shame.
The recast, the no-show, the Dandy the Clown, and the new one.
But for me, I guess I also the first Doctor Who episodes, classic Doctor Who episodes I watched were Tomb of the Cybermen, Genesis of the Dalek, Remembrance of the Daleks. So like those, Patrick Troughton, Tom Baker, and Sylvester McCoy are the 3 in terms of like childhood nostalgia for classic Doctors are the 3 that really stick to me. I have very fond memories of like watching those episodes with my family. Just like night over night, those 3 in particular, and it was just those are the ones that just kind of have that additional nostalgia for me. So
yeah, we do love Peter Davison, guys. We love him so much.
He has so much better stories that again I do look forward to going through at some point. I mean, again, I know we did the Visitation, although I'm not particularly happy with. Oh yeah, I was going to bring it up, but my copy of Castrovalva has like tons of signatures as well.
Oh nice. Who've you got?
Sarah Sutton, Janet Fielding, and Peter Davison. I just missing Matthew Waterhouse for this, but
then you got them all
because he was never at any of the signings or conventions I ever got. But I have nearly a full set. This was all at the same convention as well. This was the Folkestone Charity Con that I went to a good few years back. Sadly, like that was a fantastic convention because it wasn't overly busy and they had like a ton of Doctor Who guests, like a ton of really good Doctor Who guests. So that was a fantastic like weekend to get to go to. Unfortunately, that was like the one like it didn't come back the next year, which was unfortunate because again, just how good it was, I guess, because not enough people. I mean, it seemed fairly busy, but it was like wasn't overbearingly busy. But I guess that might not have been enough for them, unfortunately. But Yeah. Nevertheless, I'm glad I got to go because this amongst many other signings.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up. And that wraps up this podcast review. We did it. We did it. Yeah.
Friday this ever gets released. Cough, cough.
Right, guys. Well, comment below what you thought of, Fifth Doctor era, Castrovalva. Put that all below, and also feel free to, ask for us to talk, do a podcast about one of your favorite stories or least favorite stories. Go for it, or maybe a really boring story, but maybe not, because that would suck. So yeah,
when you guys gonna re-review Underworld?
Underworld, yeah. Maybe you would have changed your mind on it. It's a hidden gem. There we go. Right. Well, you know what to do. You know the drill of the YouTubes, guys.
Yeah.
We will see you next time.
Boy.
It's really cinematic lighting on me, isn't it? Look at that.
Yeah, there's a bit, yeah. He's falling to the dark side.
Yeah.
Anakin,
Right.
no.
It's sand, Conrad. I don't like sand.
You were supposed to join the sands, not destroy them.
It's everywhere. I don't like it.
You're my sandcastle, Anakin. I loved you.
Ah, nice.
We were supposed to put our feet in the sea.
Not doing it.